option. Cool. Okay, so hello everybody, welcome. We started the recording, so I will just introduce the program now. Welcome to Helping Kids Cope with Big Back to School Feelings. This is our August program from the Crime Victim Center, and we're super happy to have folks here with us live, but also if you're watching it later, thanks for watching and we're happy to have you. My name is Grace Harvey, and I am one of the prevention educators at CVC. And I'm also here with my coworker, Denny, who's going to be helping us along through today's workshop. Like I mentioned earlier, feel free to add any comments in the chat or unmute, but we will go ahead and get started.
So while we get started, can everybody hear me? Okay, awesome. Okay, yay. So today we're just going to start by talking about where we come from in case you don't know about it. We work at the Crime Victim Center of Chester County Incorporated. At the Crime Victim Center, we help people who are hurt by other people. So if somebody is hurt by another person that you know of in Chester County, they can call our hotlines. Both hotlines are up on the screen right now. All our services are free and confidential, and we do accompaniment to hospital, police station, and court to be there with people while they're going through those tough things. Because probably if you're somewhere because you got hurt, you're not necessarily happy. Probably not happy, right? Probably feeling not great. So we like to go with folks and be an advocate. If you want to know more about this, you can check out our website, which I'll put in the chat in a sec here. I'm also going to say I use they or he pronouns. And yeah, cool.
And I use she, her.
Yes, that's awesome. Great. So we talked about Crime Victim Center. Now we're going to move on if nobody has questions. Thank you, Grace, for the website.
Yeah. So just to get to know everybody, I would love if we could go around and if folks just want to offer what brought you here to this program tonight. We're so happy to have you, and we want to hear from you. What brings you here? Again, feel free to unmute or enter in the chat. While people are maybe typing, I'll offer for me, this topic is important for me to show up because I used to have a lot of big feelings going back to school. So it's important for me to pass on some tips for other kids who deal with that. Okay, and Alexis offered in the chat, I work with youth as a sexual health educator. I'm also feeling anxious going back to school. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love hearing that. Oh, okay, you're anxious about them going back to school. Yeah, I like hearing that, you know, part of it is that we want to help kids deal with these big feelings, but another part is that we are a bit nervous for them as well. I'm hearing a lot of that from parents in my life who are a little bit weary of their kids going back. So thank you, Alexis. Ontario said, I'm interested in learning new strategies. I work with youth as well. Awesome. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Cool. And if anyone else wants to offer, you're more than welcome to add that as we go along, but we'll keep on rolling.
I know that while we were developing this program, it was pretty helpful for me to review some of this information because with the past weekend and like feeling anxious myself going back to school, you know, so like even some of these strategies are pretty helpful for us adults as well as we're anticipating getting back to being in person places. So that's neat too. Yeah, should we move along, Grace? Are you good? Cool. All right, so the agenda. So today we are going to go through some things. First, we'll chat on community norms before we get swinging right into the program. We'll talk about what is SEL, or social emotional learning. We'll talk about two aspects of social emotional learning tonight: identifying feelings and needs and healthy coping skills. And we'll break that down quite a bit. And then we're going to get into some trauma-informed tips, and we'll have space for questions and just discussion. And I think we'll probably stop recording once we get to questions, just so that everybody can have some space to share and we can all work together, because that's awesome. I love having collaborative space myself, so I love making it for other people too.
Awesome. So like Denny said, we'll just go through some norms before we get going. Some norms that we often like to bring into these spaces are ones like respect the process, right? So understand that the process of helping kids build up their skills of dealing with big feelings is an ongoing thing, and we all might be in different places with that. You might already know some of this stuff. This might be super new to you. Wherever you're at, respect the process. Another one is to remember that you're the expert of your own self and your own home. Because we're going to be talking about a bunch of different strategies that might work for you, might work for your kids that you work with. It might not. So take what sticks and leave what doesn't. Yes. Also, we talked about being able to use the chat or unmuting at any time. Danny and I are very open to any type of interaction. So that's good for tonight. And a last norm is to just enter this space respectfully of each other. We all have our own things that work for us and for our kids. So we'll all just be respecting each other in community tonight, and hopefully sharing some tips and knowledge with each other. Any others you want to add, Denny? If not, we can move on. Cool.
Okay, so then we're going to start talking about what is SEL. So SEL, or social emotional learning, is actually become really essential to our understanding of prevention, since even before this last year in our last year that was crazy with so many different things. I mean, not crazy, but it was intense and emotional and isolated. How's that? Social emotional learning is, and I'm just gonna give you the straight up definition so that we can get in here, is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, achieve personal and collective goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. That is a lot of stuff. And I think that this definition is very large and comprehensive, but I think it's most important to remember that social emotional learning helps us to learn how to navigate feelings and navigate how to have caring relationships and empathy with each other, and apply community care so that we can have good decision-making skills that meet the needs of the community, right? So when we all work together to learn to incorporate social emotional learning into our own lives and to bring it into the lives of the youth in our space, those folks are going to be able to make decisions that serve their community, right, and themselves, right, as part of the community. So this is a new standard that we want to be working with and moving towards for everybody. Some super cool things about social emotional learning is that it super prevents violence and other bad outcomes, right? Because if we are focusing on how we feel and giving expression to those feelings and meeting needs that we have, then we are not usually going to make as unhealthy choices, right? Because we have healthier options available to us. Yeah. And we can also notice in our circle here, so tonight we're going to be talking about those two orange spokes on the wheel, self-awareness and self-management. Self-awareness, we'll talk about first, is feelings and needs, and then self-management is coping. These two are the foundation on which the other three are built. Social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. And also you're on this circle, wherever you are, you might be a classroom of a sort, you might be a school of a sort, or a caregiver or a community, right? And you might, I think they put classrooms right here in the middle, right? But the truth is, any place that we are and we are learning and we're in community with people who care for us can be that source of social emotional learning in our lives. Families and caregivers can give these tools to us. That's where I learned most of my social emotional learning skills, which was lucky. And some people get it through community, and that is also lucky, right? Wherever we get it from is fantastic. So I think that's important to know too.
And as we go through this, I want to remind everyone that SEL isn't just for kids, it's for everybody. And really, it's a pretty big deal for us as adults to think about ways that we can build up our own social and emotional skills, because anything you ever read on SEL is going to tell you it's got to start with adults first. So as we go through, I want you to think about these things, not just for the kids that you're around, but how are you implementing this stuff in your own life and building your own skills so that you can better help the kids in your life. And we're all on different journeys, right? We said in the beginning, respect the process. Some of us maybe got lucky and learned some of this stuff when we were younger, but I would guess to say a lot of us adults probably don't feel like we ever really learned about expressing our emotions and managing our feelings. And so we're definitely all on this journey of learning together. And so just keep that in mind as we move forward. And we're going to go ahead and get into our first section, which is talking about identifying your feelings and your needs. And this comes first because when we're talking about these big back to school feelings, in order for us to be able to manage them and help kids cope with them, first, they're going to have to be able to identify those feelings and talk about them, or else we won't really know what's going on. And so one really important part about feelings and needs when it comes to helping kids build these skills is that we start off by modeling it ourselves. So this just means that we are living it. We are putting into practice what we're talking about, and we are showing kids examples of what it means and what it looks like to identify our own feelings. So for example, this might simply look like talking about your own feelings with the kids in your life, right? So you might be honest and say, I am feeling super frustrated today. Or you might say, yesterday I was a little bit sad, but today I'm feeling very hopeful, right? So there are a lot of opportunities for us to model this, to show this to kids in hopes that they will pick it up themselves. Other ways that we can start off with teaching kids how to identify their feelings is by expanding their feelings vocabulary and bringing it into a routine. So helping them learn that there are a bunch of different words that they can use for the way that they're feeling and make that a daily part of kids' lives. It's a normal thing if it's in their routine. And so if we can bring in things like asking kids how they're feeling into our daily routines, we're going to really make this something that's normal for them and that they're pretty good at. And lastly, while we're talking about this, we are going to take a look at an example from a guy named Mark Brackett. He is the director of Yale University's Center for Emotional Intelligence, but he wrote a really awesome book, and it's called Permission to Feel. If you've never heard of it, I suggest you check it out. Mark is a really cool guy, but he also created this tool called the mood meter. And the purpose of the mood meter is what we just talked about, bringing in feelings vocabulary and identifying our feelings into a routine. So this tool up on the screen is a little hard to read. It's a little cluttered, but if you look at it in front of you, it's basically just a visual display of a bunch of different feelings that might exist on this scale. As you can see, it goes up and down in energy, and it also goes up in pleasantness. So for example, the lowest energy and the lowest pleasantness feeling might be described as despair or hopelessness. And really high energy, high pleasantness feeling, we might call elated, ecstatic, right? Festive, even. That's a really fun one that I haven't looked at yet. And so what Mark suggests we do is that we use the mood meter to bring this in and ask every day with our kids, how are you feeling? Where are you on the mood meter today? Or maybe you do it multiple times a day, right? Where are you right now? At home, this could look like something you do in the morning or at bedtime. In classroom settings or different community settings, this could just look like you're welcome. How are you doing today? How are you feeling? So again, this is just a really cool tool of getting us used to identifying how we're feeling, using those bigger words to explain it. And once we know how to explain it, then we can talk about coping with it. So Denny is going to walk us through some examples of what that might look like for younger and older kids.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I love this tool. It was just occurring to me too that if you are teaching still online in any capacity, you could share it like this and use annotate on Zoom to stamp emotions, right? And you can save the picture so you could get everyone to stamp where they're at and save it and then see next time where all the stamps are at. And you almost get like a survey of how your class is feeling, right? And that can like help inform your lessons or whatever.
Yes, I've heard from lots of educators and people who work with kids who use this and say, not only is it good for their skill building of identifying their feelings, but it also really helps them know where their kids are at and how to navigate that day, right? If you have a bunch of kids who are in the jittery, tense, nervous area, you maybe have a better clue of what's going on. So it can be helpful for us, us educators or adults or parents as well.
Yeah, it's a good one. I think maybe we'll start if we do online lessons at all in the fall. That'll be great. Okay, so first we're going to talk about elementary youth and doing identifying feelings and needs. And it totally looks different, right? Depending on what age group of folks we're working with, where they're at and what they need support with. And there are all different aspects of social emotional learning too, right? So yeah. Okay, let's just start with elementary youth. So with elementary youth, we want to be building our feelings vocabulary. This looks like not just asking how people are feeling, but asking and getting an answer that is more than good or bad, right? Because good or bad is so subjective. We don't know what that means at all. And it's not really building our vocabulary. And beyond that, even saying that I'm good or bad, right? Those are really valued judgments that can be reductive and can also make it so that our kids associate them having a bad day with like feeling shame or feeling bad. Like, why do I feel bad? I shouldn't feel bad. Feeling bad is bad, right? Or something like this. So we want to move away from these value judgments because they don't benefit anyone. Instead, using more descriptive words to actually describe what the feeling is inside of us, like using the mood meter is a great one for elementary youth, like we just saw, right? Remind youth that their body belongs to them, right? And the way this connects for me is having feelings is a-okay, right? So we see in the second bullet, feelings are messages and guideposts. Feelings are little flags, right, that are telling us where to go and signs telling us what to do and what we need and these kinds of things, right? And so at the base of a feeling is always a need, is always something that is going on underneath it. There's always a reason we're feeling something. There isn't just like feeling random stuff, you know what I mean? So it's good to try and get down to the bottom of that. But beyond that, right, with elementary youth especially, it is never okay to hurt someone else's body because of a feeling we're having, right, is an important and fundamental value that we want to teach kids. No matter how bad we are feeling inside, it's really important we don't hurt other people's bodies, because we are humans that are in caring community. And if we hurt a body, we got to care for it, which we should do, but still, let's avoid it altogether, right? Okay. Lastly, modeling. Okay. So this is, like I said, avoiding good, bad talk, but this means actually maybe trying to not use good, bad when you're talking about yourself, your own feelings, and also maybe being self-reflective for yourself. What does your self-talk look like? I have such bad self-talk sometimes, but this can be a real reflection on where we're going to be at when we are stressed, right? Sometimes when I'm really stressed, I say all kinds of mean, awful things to myself. Oh man, Danny, why'd you do that? What are you doing? You know, and we want to stop doing these things, because especially when kids see us do this, we are modeling bad self-talk, which is not going to be good for any of our self-esteem. So good reminders. Last one, to spend time listening and taking opportunities for teachable moments, right? And for opportunities when big feelings are happening. When we are stressed out and there is too much going on and we are too busy, the first thing that gets nixed is the valuable renewing parts of our day, right? And I just had this pointed out to me recently over the weekend, right? If I have too much going on, I immediately cut food out of my life, which is a terrible choice that ruins the rest of my day, right? So why do I do it? Anyway, I think that when somebody's having a big feeling, right, it's a great opportunity for us to take a moment and talk through it and work on what identifying and managing feelings is. And so we might be rushed, right? We might be like, oh, I wish you would put your coat on. We need to go. And your kid is like, I will never put my coat on. But it's good if we can actually maybe spend 5 more minutes talking about it and talking about how we're feeling and how they're feeling to get through it, instead of just rushing through it because we gotta or we have to, right? Because managing feelings, if we don't deal with a feeling and a need of our kid goes unmet and unmet consistently over and over, they're going to have more and more volatile reactions to having their needs not met until it's something that is like really unhandleable, right? So this is just something to reflect on. Also, right, if this keeps happening and there is something bigger and you really can't get to the root of what's going on here, it's a-okay to get help from whoever, if you want to get counseling for somebody, if you want to try and see if there's other resources for support, do it. There are so many resources at our fingertips in Chester County and all over the state. And also, we will help you find those things if you need them. So I want to say all that. Moving on to older kids and adults, actually, right? This is more the model we want to end up working towards whenever we're in a situation where we're having maybe a big feeling or a volatile feeling and we need to keep going. We need to figure it out, or we need to do some conflict resolution of some kind, right? Then we want to use the nonviolent communication process, which is from Nonviolent Communication. It's got a website online. It's from a book from Marshall Rosenberg. It's an excellent book. All those resources are great. Oh yeah, and Grace, are you dropping that in the chat? Thank you so much. Grace is going to drop something in the chat. In the chat are our references with some links connected to it, right? And our information. But also, if you scroll down past that first page, you will get to some worksheets that have this nonviolent communication process. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the steps, and then some actual needs and feelings vocab sheets to help us work through this. Let's use the code example, okay? So first we want to observe a factual thing that's happening that is kind of causing or triggering something to happen, right? A feeling, literally. So I notice this, it's making me feel this way, or I feel this way when I see that, right? Because I'm needing this blank. And then making a specific request to someone to try and get that need met, right? And last and most importantly is listening and reflecting what that other person is feeling. A lot of the time, right, a big part of the process of working through stuff and finding solutions is actually processing feelings. And so if we don't give space and empathy to somebody who we're talking to and trying to figure something out with, they might not be so willing to work through it with us. And we want space for our feelings. They deserve space for their feelings, all that stuff. So let's say we do the jacket thing. You are like, hey, I noticed that every time I ask you to put your jacket on recently, you are just not having it. You won't put on your jacket, and it takes forever for me to convince you to do this. And it makes me feel really frustrated because I'm really needing your health and safety. And when it's cold outside, I need you to wear your jacket so that you're safe and healthy. Do you think that next time you could put your jacket on 5 minutes at least after I ask you? Is a great kind of model through that. And then we do the last part, right, which was listening and reflecting. So let's say our kid says something like, I hate this jacket. It feels terrible on my body. And every time I put it on, it scratches in my armpits because it's too small. And so I never want to wear it. And so I'm never going to put it on. And we can see that this kid is not using the NVC process because kids have a hard time using this. For older youth, it's a great thing to start to introduce them to. So once we get to middle school, high school, and even like fifth grade, right, we can start to work through this process to help understand what we need. But with younger kids, we might have to hear the need, right? So when we hear our kids say, I'm never putting this coat on, it hurts my body, right? It's hurting my armpits. We hear, oh my gosh, I'm noticing that you're not putting your coat on because you're feeling really frustrated and actually like in pain, right? Or like having chafing. That's the feeling, it's chafing. And you need a new coat. So maybe what we'll do is tomorrow we'll get you a new coat, or like soon, whenever we can, we'll get a new coat somehow, or try and get a different hand-me-down or whatever we can. And then can you please do that for me? Put on your coat when I ask you to. Right? And then we both get our needs met. We remember that when we have a problem, it's you and me versus the problem. It's not you versus me, right? Okay. So that's the NVC process. And like I said, that's all in those worksheets too.
Now, ways that talking about feelings and needs might be incorporated into your lives and into your homes or classrooms, wherever you're working from. But I also want to remind everyone that you most likely, I'm pretty sure, are already doing a lot of this awesome stuff. A lot of us are already doing this stuff. We just don't name it. And so it's really important for us to start to intentionally name what we're doing so that we can continue to do it and build those skills. And so some of the ways this might look like might be, like we said, not just asking kids how they're feeling, but digging deeper, right? So maybe asking kids how they might feel if they were in a certain situation. So a kid might come home from school and explain something that a friend or a classmate is doing. Maybe they're talking about something that happened with a cousin or a sister or a family member. And this is a time when we can say, how do you think you would feel if that happened to you? And not only is this a good exercise for us to get them thinking about different feelings and identifying feelings, but it's also a really good empathy builder, right? Saying, how do you think you would feel if you were in their shoes? Really starts to build those skills of empathy, of thinking about how other people might feel. Another really cool way to deepen this discussion is to not only ask how kids are feeling, but ask them how they know. And I think this is a really good spot for modeling as well as adults. We can show them what this looks like by saying, I am feeling super anxious right now, and I know because my heart is beating really fast, right? Those ways that we can model for kids what this looks like, and so they can practice it back to us. Like I said, sharing our experiences, sharing, mom is feeling really anxious today. My heart is beating really fast. That's why I know. And it's a little bit uncomfortable, right? Sharing these feelings so that we can get our kids knowing that it's okay to have these uncomfortable feelings. It doesn't mean anything bad or it doesn't mean anything good. It's just a feeling. And so we can show them that these feelings happen and it's okay to share them. Also, using books and media is a really, really easy way to start this conversation because we see a whole lot of emotions on TV and in movies and books. And it's really simple to just slip in the question, how do you think that character is feeling? Right? Take a moment to pause before you turn the page of a book and ask, oh man, how do you think they're feeling right now? Or what would you feel if that happened to you? These really get kids' brains thinking about these things. And lastly, we can talk about body language. Kids sometimes language. Sometimes we talk to them about it and teach them that our bodies sometimes share messages about how we're feeling. Other times it can be a little confusing. We might think that our friends are mad at us, but really there's something else going on. So we can start these conversations about the mixed up messages that we might get from body language, or maybe the mixed up messages they might be sending through their body language. So this is a cool way to deepen these conversations that we're having about feelings. And so now that we've talked a lot about the identifying part of this duo, Denny's going to take us into talking about what do you do now that you have identified these feelings, now that your kid is saying, Mom and Dad, I am frustrated. I am like having despair, right? Now that they have this vocabulary, what do we do once they come to us with these big feelings?
Yay. Yes, I also want to say quick that we can also ask like questions that are for older youth when we're consuming media together too, because I know that during middle school and high school, we might get I was very, would run away to my room and have a lot of alone time. And so we do get those brief periods to kind of be consuming whatever show together, right? And can ask questions like, well, did you think they made a good choice, right? Or do you think, well, like ask these questions that are higher up in our social emotional learning, like how do you think they're like, why do you think they did that? Asking questions that are more complex is a-okay too, right? Even with younger kids, sometimes they have good answers too. I love that when you ask a complicated answer to a kid that's very young and they have it, they know, they're like, yes, okay. Anyway, all right. So after we do the first part with it, which is self-awareness, right, which is identifying feelings and needs, then we move into self-management, which is the second fundamental basis for our social emotional learning, right, which is coping. It's coping with big feelings. And so the goal of coping, right, is to get to a grounded state where we can maybe solve or try and find a solution to some of the problems that we're having, right, in whatever way that means. And so, yeah, basically, we have coping skills that are healthy and unhealthy. And coping is about getting to a state where we feel safe and like we can control things a little bit better, right? We might feel really stressed out with our big feelings. And so we might need to just do some other things before we actually get to figuring it out and solving it. So that's going to lead us to our last three bits, which are with coping with big feelings. Sorry, they're not our last three bits, but we're going to brainstorm actually some strategies. So I like to ask this: if we're in a space where we're having a huge feeling, a huge reaction, and we're not doing okay, or maybe, we are, do we need to calm it down, let it out, or figure it out, right? So which one is going to help us to get to a place where we can figure it out? Maybe we can't figure it out yet. Maybe we need to let it out. And I think this also comes up for adults, right? I know I learned this in the last couple of years, which is sometimes when somebody asks you for help, you need to ask if they want to be heard first or if they want to solve it. Because sometimes you go to your friend and ask for help and your friend's like, well, did you try this and this and this and this and this? And you're like, oh man, I really just wanted to tell you about how it's made me feel and like vent a little bit, right? There are lots of ways to vent. And so let's get into it. First one is calm it down. So we're going to do calm it down, let it out, figure it out. Here we go.
Cool. So when we talk about calm it down, we're talking about ways to, like Denny said, bring ourselves down to a state where we feel like we can see what's going on, feel grounded, and control the situation a bit better. So this might be activities that are soothing or restful to you. Activities that might bring you some peace or support, or even just stuff that will bring your heart rate down and connect you back to a grounded state. I'm sure all of us have experienced moments when we just need to calm down our feelings before we can do anything with them. And like I said, all of this stuff is stuff that us as adults need to work on first. So that's what we're going to do. We're looking to you now for some help with these examples. What are some ways that you all use to calm yourselves down? And please feel free to share a bunch of different answers. I'll give you all a second to pop some in the chat and we will add them and come up with a big old list of ways to calm down.
And I'll give the hint that these are going to be things that connect to your senses. So think of activities that have reactions from your senses that are pleasant.
I know for me, a big one for calming down is breathing. I know it's a tale as old as time. Everyone talks about deep breathing, but truly this is something that really helps me calm down because it helps my heart rate go down. So that's a big one for me. Alexis is taking a moment to stare out the window, especially if I'm on a computer. Love that. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, staring at a window, or if you're able to go outside and look around, but like Alexis said, sometimes a window is also a really good option. What about you, Denny? What does calming down look like for you?
I have a lot of them because, you know, because one doesn't work and then another one doesn't work and then you got to try a couple sometimes. I think some basic ones are actually, I don't know. That's kind of a combo. So I'm going to save that one. And I'm going to mention it next time because I'm going to point out that it can be both. Okay, so let me get down in. Okay, so light a candle. Ooh, light a candle. I also love looking out my window. That's number one. Looking at plants in my life or like caring for plants.
Yeah, Perio also added taking some deep breaths. Yep, exactly. I heard once, oh man, I forget how many. I think it's like 5 deep breaths can recenter your nervous system. And that really helped me during COVID. I would get very frustrated and would remind myself 5 deep breaths to just realign. I would also say sleeping for me is big. If I am just too, like, the energy of the feeling is a lot, I like to try and lay in bed, watch TV show that I really like, kind of like recharge, maybe take a nap. Washing your face. Yeah, I like that one. It's like little things that we do every day that suddenly we're like, how can I make this a bigger thing? Making small things a bigger deal, like washing your face, can be really calming. Cuddle a pet is ones that kids always say when we ask them how they calm down. They always say, pet my cat or my dog. And so while we're thinking about this stuff, I want us to think about ways that we can share these strategies with the kids in our lives as well. Some of them we may suggest to them, some of them we may not, but also think about ways that we can suggest and help them come up with options to calm down, maybe in different scenarios, right? So if they're having big feelings about going back to school, there's definitely ways they might be able to calm down at home that are going to be different than if they need to calm down on the bus, or if they need to calm down in class and they're not able to get up and go outside, or they're not able to lay in their bed. So thinking about options for them that they can do anywhere. So those deep breathing really fall into that category. Also things like looking out windows or like connecting to your body. I know some people fiddle with their hands when they need to calm down, or touch things, like small little things that you can play and fidget around with. And those are usually accessible to kids in school. This is an awesome list. So for the sake of time, Denny, why don't we go ahead and move on? But thanks everybody for this list. It's really great.
Okay, so next we're going to do letting it out, which is different from calming it down, right? Because calming is going to be soothing, restful, and affirming. And with letting it out, it might mean that we're having, so we had our meter, right, that had pleasantness and energy, and it's going to be the stuff all at the top of that emotions where we're having huge energy, right? And we need to let out the energy in order to do any kind of problem solving. And so what are some high energy ways that we cope? What are some high energy things that help us to cope? Drop them in the chat. Ooh, somebody else is here.
And again, I'll offer some of my own while folks are adding into the chat, but for me, letting it out really looks like exercise, which I do not always love to do, but I know that it really helps me get out anxious or angry energy. So things like walking or running, or right now I'm really into Zumba, which is a very fun way for me to let out some energy. Yeah, dancing. That's great. Alexis says crying, which I totally second that. What a beautiful, wonderful way to seriously let out that stuff that's going on inside. Any other examples from our friends at home? What do you all do?
Crying super easy, right? Just put on the Notebook or Queer Eye for, yeah. Whatever it is that makes you cry, right? Doesn't everybody have like a movie or show that consistently makes them cry? I think that's right. I was gonna say dancing, so that's already taken, but that's great. And what's fun about that too is that it's also like listening to music actually fits on both of these because there's music that calms us down and is like sad or is like nice and fun and light, or there's like music that's like I'm really angry, or there's like music that's like I need to dance. So whatever it is that you need, right, you might help you actually understand your feelings a little better to think about what song you want to listen to right now, so you can like backwards train it that way. Oh yeah. Okay, high energy stuff. People, my favorite high energy coping when I'm really anxious is definitely cleaning. And I bet a lot of people do that. Also because it like actually does a thing where you're doing something, so it's high energy, but at the end you feel so good too. So it's actually both. And that's what's great about it. Yeah, what was the other one? Well, you can do like some type of sport, kicking something, throwing something, chopping wood is great for being angry. That's a fun one. I tried out. Let's see what else. Playing a video game that is like Mario Kart or if you play other games. And this is also for kids too, right? Maybe your
Mhm.
kid's feeling really angry, upset, or frustrated, and the way they deal with that is by playing a video game. But maybe when they're done with the video game, depending on what it is, they realize that the video game made them feel worse or better. That's another thing to check in about, right? What if the coping strategies that we've identified aren't working? Then we got to change them, right? And that's okay too. So
And what's great about having all these options is we can teach kids that they can find ways that work for them. Might not look like your way, but that's okay. Right. So we talk to kids about how they get their energy out. And a lot of them say, well, I shouldn't hit things or I shouldn't punch things. And we say, right, you want to keep everybody safe, but it's okay for us to say, screaming into a pillow or kicking a soccer ball really, really hard or throwing a ball as hard as you can against the wall. These are ways that we can help kids get out that energy while still keeping themselves safe and their community and other people safe. So we talk a lot about screaming into a pillow and kicking a soccer ball really hard.
yeah, or shredding paper, which is both probably
Yeah.
both calming and destroying something, which I think is a good combo for when you're feeling a bad feeling. Just saying.
Again, what a healthy, safe way to channel that energy. If you feel like destroying stuff, head to the shredder
And
with
then
things that adults have okayed to be shredded.
only those things, yeah. And then you can put
Yeah.
them right in your
And
compost. No.
Alexis says kneading dough. That's a really awesome one too. I really like the ideas that we can give kids to kind of change their perception that it's okay if you need to physically get energy out. There are a lot of safe and healthy ways we can do it, like kneading dough. It's a really awesome one.
Oh, and the one that I forgot to say that's both also is cooking, because cooking is active, right? But it's also using our senses, like to smell, to feel, to get a good taste. And all those things engage our senses in a good way. So it's maybe taking some real time to work with foods that make you feel really good and happy, and that make your tummy feel good and happy. Also, you got to eat no matter what. So that's a thing. Cool. Okay. Okay, I'm going to clear the drawings now. But remember, too, that this isn't just lists for you, right? There are things that are for you, but you can also help the youth in your life to make these lists for themselves. Whatever that looks like, help them to identify those needs. Maybe you're just talking and they say something and you're like, that is coping. You're just describing coping to me and you're doing it great. That's a great coping skill for when you feel that thing, right? And you can, I love telling kids they're smart without trying, and it makes them feel good too. And Alexis
Yeah.
also shared about keep Play-Doh at my desk. Yes, yes. I have silly putty here as well. We were playing with fidgets in the office today. It was great.
Mhm.
It's very important stuff for all kinds of learners, not just kids. Fidgets are for everyone. That's the message. No, there's more than that, but okay.
Yep.
Next, we're going to talk about figuring it out. And this one is just going to be using the NVC process, right? And hopefully we're using that ourselves. If we're talking to a younger kid, that's going to look like, right, reflecting their feelings back to them, because they might not be able to use this framework or the strategy set yet, right? So we might be listening to them and they might be saying, oh my God, Susie is so lazy because Susie never does anything for our group project. And I'm really upset. And we're going to get a terrible grade. And I don't know what to do. And I'm probably going to tell the teachers, I don't know. And you are there hearing all this and you're like, man, so what I'm hearing is that you are feeling really frustrated because you're needing some fairness when you're making this assignment together, right? And you're not getting effort from this person, right? And you're hoping that they could give, and then maybe asking them specific questions about what way did you break up the thing initially? Like, what were some of the agreements you made? How did you try and make it Susie aware that she needed to do the work, right? And ask these important questions, right? Yeah.
And when it comes to figuring it out, especially with kids who are going back to school, we might not always be there, right? And so we want to remind them of safe adults in their life who they can go to if they need to figure something out. Maybe they don't want to come to you for everything, and that's okay, right? We can help them out by listing and talking about other safe adults who will hear their feelings and help them figure them out and work through them.
Okay, cool.
So before we go, we are quickly going to talk about bringing in trauma-informed processes into this idea of helping kids cope with these big back to school feelings. And the reason we bring this up is because the past year has been pretty traumatic for a lot of us and for a lot of kids that we know. And so we want to be sensitive to all of those different feelings they might be bringing. They might be bringing trauma from their past that doesn't have anything to do with the past year, or they might be bringing trauma that does. But regardless, there are some simple ways that we can try and be more sensitive to the trauma that kids are holding. So that might look like things that make them feel more safe, that reduce that feeling of or flight, right? That make them feel safer. So that looks like bringing in routines and predictability. Maybe at home you have a morning routine before school every day, or they have a strict routine that they know is going to happen when they get picked up. Stuff like that helps kids not worry so much about what's going on because they know what happens in the morning, what happens after school, what happens when you get on the bus. And we can also help with predictability by being really honest, right? Maybe we be honest and say, I don't know what school is going to look like this year. Maybe things will change. Maybe they won't. We really don't know. Being honest with them that we don't exactly know what's going to happen and that we don't have all the answers. But helping them when we can bring in that predictability of this is what things are going to be like and what you can expect. And then further down the line, we can offer some choices to them to reaffirm some feelings of power or autonomy. Also bringing in that honesty, like we talked about, taking those moments to slow down and get on their level and bring in those feelings of safety and security, which is tough right now, right? A lot of us don't necessarily feel super safe physically or emotionally. And so we really want to think about these ways we can bring in trauma-informed practices of choices, of routines to get kids a little bit more comfortable. Okay. For the sake of time, we'll have to move on.
Awesome. All right. So, Grace, can you redrop that worksheet in the chat because we had somebody who joined, so I just want to make sure they get it.
You got it.
And these are those references that are in that document that you can check out, and there are links there for that. But also, if you scroll down, since some folks didn't hear earlier, there are worksheets underneath that are about the process to go through, the NVC process that we can use when we're trying to sort through feelings and work together. And also, yeah, the feelings and needs vocabulary sheets are on there. So that's some important good stuff. And all that information about that process is also at the Nonviolent Communication Center, whose website is here, right? And we had some other ones. There was one more that we referenced. The mood meter is on there as well, but it's not on this slide. Sorry.
It's under permission to feel.
Oh, is it? Oops.
Yep.
I thought we missed something, but that's okay. Never mind.
We're good. And just another reminder that CVC is here for you, even if it's not directly related to someone being harmed by someone else. You're welcome to reach out to us if you're looking for more resources. Like Denny said earlier, if these big feelings are really getting in the way of a kid's ability to do daily tasks, it might be time to look for some different help. Maybe there are other professional help options that we can help you find as well if you need support. So our names and emails are on that resource sheet, so please feel free to reach out to us if you ever need it.
Yes. And now I'm going to open up space for questions. I totally recognize also that we're done with time though. So if people need to head out, that's a-okay. I'm going to stop the recording in case people do have questions.